Dan to Dan, episode 4, Kicking Turbo Granny's, backside. And I gotta say, this series is continuing to deliver, but again, I still have a lot of questions pertaining to what in the heck is actually going on. Let's talk about it. All right, guys, Brent here back with Geek Variants. Cover all things Marvel, DC, Lord of the Rings, anime, gaming, Star Wars, and more. This time, Dan to Dan, and I do apologize that the episode's late. Work ran late. It's been crazy. The easiest way to make sure that I don't have to continue to work late, hit that lovely subscribe button, run up that watch time, and hey, maybe soon enough, I'll be completely free to be full time and be able to go ahead and live stream these events as they transpire. But look, Dan to Dan episode 4 continues the strong start that this series has had in no uncertain terms. This anime, I would not recommend for beginners. It has so many different layers to it of weirdness that you need someone who's kind of experienced in the anime world to kind of pick up some of what they're putting down. And then again, some of just the content in general is so out there. Even an experienced anime person would be like, this is a little weird. And I enjoyed this kind of weird. This kind of weird is very, very bizarre. And the fact that we have Okarun, who is this weird introverted kid, and then we have Asayase, who is basically just this really, really outgoing, preppy girl, very confident, but also very reserved in a lot of different matters that are entirely someone's choice. And they decide to, end up becoming friends, but they end up fighting in this beginning of the episodes to not go into the tunnel. Which, hey, I totally get it. That tunnel is a place I would not want to be. If you told me that there was a bound spirit as well as Turbo Granny who started all of the conundrums that we have been like kind of going into this season, I'm not really keen on going into their actual layer where they're strongest and trying to go ahead and take about these series of events. Luckily for them, they end up going into the tunnel, and Miss Ayase is absolutely on the ball. Turbo Granny is about to jump them. It's about to be game over, set and match, straight up eat them. That'd been it. Hey, really quick, short series, sweet and to the point. But instead, ISA has a great thought and says, hey, I'll challenge you to a race. Let's go ahead and do this thing. You're so prideful. There's absolutely no way you're going to say no. Ultimately, they set a 10-minute timer and says, hey, cool. In 10 minutes, you come chase us. Unfortunately, Granny's a trickster. She didn't say how or why, or even in what theory you could count. So she decides to count insanely fast and insanely wrong, but at the same time, then ends up jumping Ayase and then jumping Okarun. Okarun is also able to have the most insane Goku moment I have actually ever seen. And if you watch Dragon Ball Z, you know Goku's secret move isn't the Kamehameha. It's not the Spirit Bomb. It's biting people. Goku is a legit biter. He needs to be locked up for all the different villains that he has bit throughout his time frame. And Okarun decides to not only pull a Goku, but he's doing a Goku while he's biting on Turbo Granny's, chest area. What in the world? How do you even plan that out? What was your thought process behind it? I have questions. But for better or for worse, Okarun got a really good handle on it and just straight up held on for dear life. And Turbo Granny was spinning him around and round and round, and he just wouldn't let go. Ultimately, causing her to have a lapse in focus, causing ISA to get out, and they're both able to break free, then sprinting on out of the tunnel to what they thought was their absolute freedom. Turbo Granny, on the other hand, then decides to, catch on up and using the bound spirit because the Turbo Granny got kind of shrunk back down. The bound spirit, which has taken the form of a crab, because I guess in Japanese culture, spirits will turn themselves into crabs so they can get across the river to the underworld. Cool. Definitely did not know that going into it. That crab then decides to chase them all throughout town, causing a whole bunch of shenanigans ultimately for everyone to be like, hey, let's run into kind of like a bathhouse or a quick little building here because, hey, this gargantuan crab the size of 2 or 3 buildings isn't going to be able to fit. The logic checks out, but again, we see that the crab was excessively smarter than them. It broke directly into the building, and luckily for them, they ended up near a natural hot spring inside of a building. ISA then uses the water to cook the crab, cause him to harden, and give them like a running head start for a moment in time. Unfortunately for them, Turbo Granny is insanely crafty. Turbo Granny decides to use her powers to resurrect the dead, which the cemetery is just on the outside of town, right at the edge. So all these people are basically flanking in while you are here and you're just being surrounded. So you're basically getting jumped by all the dead who she's now controlling to ensure that she's able to win her race because hey, Granny don't lose. And ultimately they end up in terrible situations where Okarun is now having to use his turbo boost, which he's still at this point only able to use 2 full turbo boosts. And he's able to escape the situation for the most part. Unfortunately, he continues to get outthought by Granny in no uncertain terms, and then they were able to both Asayase and Okarun come up with some crazy inventive ways to kind of move things about. Asayase was able to use her powers to grab onto beams, pull them around, make sharp turns, because for whatever reason, Okarun still doesn't really have the whole turning thing down. He's got the speed for a straight distance. He's good. Have him turn, basically useless. So he won't be able to be much of help in that regard. But as everyone is trapped and we think that the end is near and we have the dead on this side, the dead on this side with Turbo Granny and the crab, and our heroes in the center, Sayase has an ingenious thought process where she continues to challenge Turbo Granny one last time. She's like, hey, the Turbo Granny suggests, hey, we're going to give you 10 seconds. I'm going to give you that head start, and I'll actually wait till the 10-second count to go ahead and get you because she wants to be a fair sport, which, hey, better late than never. But again, why now? And ultimately, we see that Sayase was smarter than her, grabbed Okarun, used her powers, yeeted herself onto a train, and the train goes faster than Turbo Granny's top speed. And she assumes they're automatically safe, but Turbo Granny catches up and then reminds them very politely that, hey, trains slow down from their maximum speed when they're making turns, which they were currently doing. But also, as Ayase had already counted that into her plan, it had her granny waiting at the very end of the outskirts of town with a whole bunch of cursor moving seals right at the edge. So the minute the train went over that portion in time, as Asayase is holding on to Turbo Granny and locking her into place, boom, she's absolutely eviscerated by all these curses. And then she's gone, ultimately freeing Okarun, which leads him to the fact that he has believed he's got his banana back. So, hey, shout out to that. And then the fact later on we end up seeing that Asayase's granny is chasing around Okarun trying to see his banana is ultimately bizarre for a multitude of reasons. But again, this anime has continued to be weird. But we're hinting towards next week that Okarun could be missing the grapes that go with the bananas to complete his fruit basket, if you catch my meaning. So interested to see what that's all about. The series has continued to be weird and bizarre in only so many certain circumstances, and it looks like we're gonna have an introduction of a new character next week. I'm just excited about it as you guys are. Be sure to hit that lovely red subscribe button if you love the content and the breakdown at this moment in time. I'll be back tomorrow at a much more reasonable hour for Dragon Ball Daima's breakdown, as well as over the weekend we'll be back with some Penguin coverage. I've been Brent for Geek Variants. I'll see you in the next one.